Hello, Eduardo, Jorge. Nice to see you.
Okay, here we go. Sorry, I was on mute.
Okay.
Yes, I'm doing very well, thank you. It's great to see you and to see everyone today.
Hi, Sarah.
This is a great panel. We have renowned speakers to make this internet magic a reality. Today, we're going to have presentations by Sarah Armstrong from Internet Society Foundation, by Pro from Internet Society as well. They are going to be talking about what's been done in this foundation that started operating in 2019 and that has had an exponential development towards 2022, where they have been supporting different projects. So it's going to be a great pleasure to listen about this, their focus on what the Internet Society is doing. And also from CAF, we have Eduardo Tomali, who is in charge of the technical assessment of the different programs in Internet, as well as Mauricio Agudelo, the Digital Agenda Coordinator from CAF. It's a great pleasure to have you in this panel. Eduardo, Mauricio also, and it's a pleasure to also share the panel with Miguel Porrua, who is a specialist, an e-government specialist from the IDB. It's a pleasure, and I'm happy to have the opportunity to share with you and the audience this online panel. And I would like to start with the presentation. So first of all, Sarah, I don't know if you can share your slides, and if you would like to start with the presentation.
Please feel free to go ahead with the presentation about what the Internet Society Foundation is doing.
Okay, so Jorge, you do not have the slides, so you need me to share them, correct?
Please.
Okay, I'm going to do so. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
And you can see, so I will turn it to full slideshow mode now.
Yes.
Yes, it is now.
Excellent. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. I will speak slowly for the sake of the translator. And I know because I think I'm the only English speaker on the panel, and I'm thrilled to be here again. As Olga knows and others of you know, I have spoken at this conference several times, and I think that this School of Internet Governance is really, really important. Sake of the that you've been able to do, translator, and I know because I think I'm the only English speaker on the education that you provide is just so fantastic. As Olga knows and others of you know, I have spoken at. Started to talk about what is a fairly new organization still, the Internet Society Foundation. I'm the executive director of the Internet Society Foundation, and as you can see, I am joined by a colleague today, Rai, and he is our operations specialist. So he and I will actually be sharing the stage today specifically for our organization. So this is an organization that actually Olga was part of helping develop. She was on the board of trustees for the Internet Society at the time that this was being discussed. And so she and I have known each other since I was actually in the interviewing process. So I would like to just nod to Olga and tell her how pleased I am to continue to be working with her. So let me go to the first slide. This is a story about where we've been and where we're going. This foundation was decided to be started by the Internet Society because they felt like it was important for them to extend their mission and vision through philanthropy. So the Internet Society, as many of you probably know, was started way long ago in 1992, but it wasn't until later in the 2000s that they decided that they wanted to go ahead and do more work with philanthropy and try to really extend their mission. So it was during that time that they started some grant programs, but then they decided maybe that's not enough. Maybe what we need is a foundation where we can fund even more organizations to help us realize our vision of the internet is for everyone. So they started a foundation with the help of the board of trustees and very importantly from an outside firm to help do research to determine what a foundation might look like, what the gap areas are for funding, and as a result, what kinds of things the program areas might be and might focus on as we started this foundation. So these things were put together with outside counsel and outside experts and then staff and boards of trustees. And the Internet Society launched a website in February of 2019 to introduce the foundation to the world. So that's what happened in 2019 February, but they needed someone to start it and actually staff it. So that's when I came on board, and that was in July of 2019. And I spent that first part of the year just getting to an understanding of what needed to be done, what types of systems we needed, what type of organizational chart, what type of budget, all of those different things were very important to figure out. So it really wasn't until 2020 that we actually decided to really launch new program areas. And so we consider 2022 to be our third operational year. And in that, we are doing such amazing work. We are growing. And this session is about financing, right? So this is what we're doing. We are financing organizations around the globe in dozens of countries to help bring access to people and to help make sure those who have access are very clear on what the benefits of being connected are. So
Sarah, can you hear me?
our vision, the internet is for everyone.
Sarah, can you hear me?
Our mission,
Sarah?
the Internet Society Foundation, we
Sarah, can you hear me?
ideas and we enable communities
No, she
to
cannot hear me.
unlock the world's evolving challenges. We are very
Ella tiene
focused on
Tiene dos computadoras abiertas. Esa-
underserved and unserved, and we want to make sure
Dos
that we
dispositivos. O sea, acá está. Sarah, can you hear me? Sarah? No. Bueno, suban el volumen. ¿Podemos subir el volumen?
can read a lot about on our website. They do, in some cases, have
Ajá.
sub-programs, in which case we end up actually adding
Sí, es
up
como
to
que sea,
8
creo que
different
algo-
program
o YouTube
areas.
o alguna otra
One of
cosa.
them, if you look over to the right of the
se
slide,
mezclan
is
los-
in fact Schools of Internet Governance. So I think our name and logo might be around down there where all of you are, or for those of you who are looking at it virtually. And so we've been doing that for years, as well as the regional, national, and global IGF, and then these other program areas about which I'll speak. And then the foundation is also responsible for funding the ICTF LLC. So I think our
Sí, tiene
new
dos
logo might be
dispositivos ahí.
around down there. So here's our portfolio overview. These are the 5 programs that you saw, as I mentioned. Some have more than one component. Beyond the Net, for example, has both small and large, and those are for Internet Society chapters. This is something we've been doing for a while, and we've been making changes to make it more appealing and more comfortable for the Beyond the Net recipients, which are again the Internet Society chapters. We are very committed to making a dialogue constant with our grantees so that we are sure our programs are in fact really responding to their needs and that our requirements are not overburdensome, and yet we are very big on transparency and reporting to make sure the funding is being spent the way it
Sarah,
should
excuse
be
me.
spent.
Sorry to interrupt. Please, Adrian is telling me that the audio is not working in adequate manner. So the audio is getting returned. Excuse me.
Okay, so what would you like me to do, Jorge?
Maybe
Sí.
audio.
Can I explain what is happening? This is Olga. It seems that your YouTube channel is open, and so we hear the two audios.
So is that better?
So sorry for that, but yeah. Can you speak again?
It is.
I'm still hearing myself speak from previous time.
I can hear you better now.
So is it? So I'm sorry. Is it possible to, if you can, close your second Zoom?
El año que viene voy a poner la
Okay, is that better?
That should be better.
Yeah, it should be better. We should that a standalone presentation.
I'm asking Adrian if it is
But
already solved.
You should continue,
Yes,
and we can try.
Yes, thank you very
and
much.
see if it's
Okay,
working.
so we're okay now?
Yeah, much better. Yeah.
Yes, we're doing fine. Excellent.
And-
Thank you very much.
Sorry
Sarah.
for that.
Was everybody able to follow the presentation so far?
Yeah, we did, but it was kind of an echo with your voice. There was a similar voice somehow overlapping with yours.
Jorge, you're on mute, I think.
Let me confirm.
Sí, pero me preguntaba si se escuchaba bien, pero no sé si me escucha a mí ahora.
Okay.
Sarah, can you hear me? This is
An
Olga.
apology. These technological problems do not have a word of honor, so it usually happens.
Okay, so I spoke about the history of the Internet Society Foundation, how it was founded, when it was founded, its purpose. We also talked about the vision of the Internet Society, as well as the mission of the Internet Society Foundation, and the work that we're doing now in our work towards getting as many people access to the Internet as possible, as well as making sure that they are very clear on the benefits of being connected. So this is an organization that's about 3 years old. It was founded originally by the Internet Society. It was founded for extending the work of the Internet Society, and the Internet Society is for everyone in order to make sure that philanthropy played a role to help extend the reach. So those are the main points that I was making before. I just show you the slides earlier. So this was the timeline I shared. And I mentioned that Olga and I have known each other since the beginning, as she was on our board of trustees at the time. I also shared, like I said, the vision and the mission. And then here I was talking about the different programs that we have. In addition to everything that you see in this graphic, what's very important is to know that we also fund schools of internet governance. And that's something we have done with this one for quite some time. And so I'm sure you've seen our logo. And then I was talking here just specifics about the different programs that we offer. So I'm hoping now that that's more clear and that everybody has had a chance to get at least an idea of the organization and a little bit about me and where we're going. And I'd like to now, I don't want to save time because I know that put us over time with that situation. So I think what I'll do is have Rai, I heard a question.
No, Sarah, Rai is here with me, so he can take the floor now. Can you hear me?
Can you hear us, Sarah?
So should I go ahead and pass it to Rai and have him do the second part of the presentation?
Yes.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Please, Sarah. Yes,
Okay.
thank you very
Okay.
much.
Okay, and I'm going to go on mute. Okay, and I'm stop sharing, Rai. Or do you need me to use the
Yeah,
slides for
can you
you
put
as
the
well?
slides back on?
Can you put the slides on, Ray?
Okay.
Bueno, estas cosas pasan.
Okay, Ray, I'm going to go ahead and run the slides for you.
Great. If you can start at slide 7, I think it is. Yeah, that's perfect. Well, thank you, Sarah. Hola a todos, me llamo Ray y para mí es un placer estar acá con ustedes en Buenos Aires, en Argentina, que para mí es como mi segundo país.
Hello, my name is Ray. It's such a pleasure to be here in Argentina. Argentina is like my second country. I've been working for the Internet Society Foundation together with Sarah, and today I'm going to talk about project financing, internet-related projects through philanthropy. We started with this in 2019, and now we have a portfolio of 5 programs supporting our mission of helping communities all over the world to exploit the internet potential to tackle the challenges in the world. I'm going to talk about 3 programs: Skills, Research, and Bold. Let's start with skills, which in Spanish would be strengthening the communities, improving lives and livelihoods. We started with this program in 2020 in Bangladesh, Colombia, and Senegal, and we are going to launch it in Brazil, Ghana, and Indonesia, supporting programs that focus on economic inclusion and education. The ones who benefit from these programs is in Colombia and has a program that is called Conectadas. You can see Lady Rojas, who is working as a seamstress, and Lady and other participants improved their digital skills to promote their businesses. And here you can see what we were told. Karen said that once she wants to have an online school where women can learn how to develop products and to sell those products. And Lady, in the future, sees herself setting up a school and a successful business to attract new customers on internet. The next program is called BOLT, would be Building Opportunities and Leveraging Technology. We started this program last year in Colombia, India, the US, and Uganda. It's funding innovators working to expand the possibilities of internet connectivity and access. Sole in Colombia is benefiting from this program. That would be self-organized learning environments, and they are going to develop or to create a classroom with this program in order to connect to the internet so that students can ask questions. I was 2 days working with the Sole Colombia team and the YU community in the north of Colombia, in Boca de Camarones, which is a small town, and you can see here 4 people working with the Sole session, and they were doing some research on what is internet. It was a great pleasure to see the efforts they are making to improve their communities. Next slide. Another one in the BOLT program is in Uganda and is called the Uganda Network for Research and Education. And they can go to an access point to connect to internet and to participate in online classes at university. During the pandemic, they couldn't go to in-person classes, so this was a solution. Next slide. The next program is a research program, and we have here 2 organizations and individual researchers benefiting from this program. We have 4 topics here. One has to do with more environmental internet, the economy of internet, and I'm going to show you now the next slide. In our research program, we have a thing that is called policy, and the big research question is how do the predominant languages that digital platforms exist in impact the access, usability, and safety of platforms and content. The researchers are focusing on Uganda, Tanzania, Ethiopia, and India because of the diversity of languages that those countries have. Next slide. To mention the process of application, we have two processes. First, the Beyond the Net Large program. We have a selection committee that selects organizations that are going to receive grants. And to talk about the skills, research, REAR, and BOLTS programs, we have an independent committee for review of programs. First, the foundation examines the applications and sends them to the committee, and then the committee recommends which projects to finance. Next slide. And what's next? We are going to continue to grow the foundation's portfolio in 2023, and we are going to support more organizations in the Latin American region, and the Caribbean region, such as we are doing with Skills in Brazil. If you want to learn more about our programs, you can go to isocfoundation.org or follow us at socials in Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Instagram. Thank you. Jorge, the floor is all yours. Are you there, Jorge? Jorge, can you hear us? While Jorge activates his microphone, I wanted to thank Sara, and I suggest that you visit the webpage because there's a lot of information about financing philanthropic projects, and some of them are through the country's chapter. So if you're interested in those, you could become a member of the Argentinian chapter, and some of the financing is through the chapter, not all of them, but you can join the chapter. I'm sorry. Well, now we are going to continue with the next speaker. In this case, it's going to be Eduardo Tomali from CAF. He's telling me that Mauricio Agudelo had some problems with his flight that was delayed, and he's not going to be able to be here with us today. So thank you, Eduardo. And if you can share what you are doing at CAF as regards financing of internet projects, it would be a pleasure to hear from you. The floor is all yours. Thank you, Jorge. And thanks, Olga, Adriana, and all the team at the school. It's a pleasure to be here with you today in this new edition of the school. As Jorge was saying, Mauricio won't be able to join us today, so we are doing at CAF. CAF is a development bank that is committed with the development in Latin America, and specifically with everything that has to do with regional integration. And we also have a strong commitment of becoming the green bank of Latin America, and also to become the bank for generating projects as regards economic and social issues in Latin America. We have 18 countries in Latin America, as well as Spain and Portugal, and 13 private banks in the region, and we have offices in 13 countries in Latin America, where undoubtedly one of the main agendas that we have that is kind of disruptive and ambitious has to do with digital transformation. I am leading that agenda in the South Cone region in CAF Montevideo, and we have a great opportunity to support countries not only with financing but also being allies, because part of our efforts have to do with developing knowledge, leading-edge knowledge and trends as regards the Latin American digital ecosystem. And I would like to highlight that in CAF, we have one of the most ambitious observatories in Latin America. We have an observatory that compares more than 150 indicators of Latin America with world and allow us to map our situation following 7 pillars. And in all of them, we have some kind of financing through non-reimbursable technical assistance or financing, and we have an investment portfolio of $3.6 billion up to 2026. Let me share with you some of the pillars of our agenda. Undoubtedly, we consider the connectivity and digital infrastructure is a vital pillar of the digital economy ecosystem, such as inclusion, the green agenda, and we have been working on this in the last year. And also we want to think about how to add value and to allow a productive use of internet. So we are thinking about technologies based on data intelligence, emerging technologies, public policy and regulations on the countries. And of course, at the corporate level, we want to help in the digital transformation and also to take advantage of the human capital. That should be another of the vital pillars in order to take advantage of the opportunities. Which are the main tools that we use to offer support? First of all, financing to countries as well as the private sector. In everything that has to do with digital transformation, we also support strategies and comprehensive reforms for digital transformation, combining infrastructure investment projects and public policy, and also technical assistance and knowledge as regards to different strategies. And we also invest in some companies or some digital projects. And this wouldn't be possible without different alliances that we have with different players and corporations in the region, sharing knowledge and also helping with economic resources. I want to show you some of the projects that we have. The first one it has to do with Panama's 100% digital strategy. The goal is to enhance internet coverage from 92 to 98% of the population. There are different lines here, and we are doing some research to determine the digital gap of the country at the socio-economic and socio-demographic level to understand the different things that we need to enable. And we started developing initiatives that today are expanding coverage to 3,300 new places and benefiting 300,000 inhabitants. And this is going to benefit the country. This is the situation in 2021. And you can see here how it is evolving. And you can see here the mix between fixed and mobile technology to have a higher coverage in the north of the country. Another project is to try to look for innovative mechanisms to close the digital gap. Miguel is also here with us today, and together with IDB and Telefónica, we are working on a program that is called Internet for Everyone. And an established operator in Peru, such as Telefónica, is contributing a rural network, and it is opening it so that other operators can also use it to generate synergy and offer services and connectivity to rural areas. It is an interesting project. You can see the perspective from 2019 to 2022, and you can see the evolution and how the country has dramatically migrated to a higher density, not only in 3 and 4G technology, but also benefiting around 3 million people in the rural areas of the country that can now take advantage of the internet opportunities. In this case, CAF investment was used, and we have another project here in Argentina. This is a sovereign financing with public collateral. It is a loan of $100 million in the province of Santa Fe. After the pandemic, they had a specific challenge, and it was to change the education system. And they had a lot of problems as regards digital connectivity. So together we developed a plan in which they were going to improve the curriculum, and they were going to improve connectivity and everything that had to do with digital transformation. And we also developed a data provincial network with fiber optic to connect not only all the government agencies, but also schools and different neighborhoods that didn't have access to internet. 365 cities through fiber optic connection, and also links through radio and Wi-Fi mesh, so that to offer that connectivity to the whole province. We are doing the tenders for the fiber optic channels, and we expect to be implemented in the next few months. Another project, or mega project, as regards digital integration, because of the size of the project. As you know, Latin America is interconnected to internet, mainly through the US. And so far, we didn't have a direct connection with Asia. So, working with the Chilean government, we contributed technical cooperation resources, non-reimbursable resources, of $3 million to do a feasibility and technical, legal, and economical analysis of this undersea cable. It's a 15,000 kilometer system from Valparaiso, Chile to Sydney that is going to interconnect to the Asian hubs. And because of geopolitical issues and some risks connected with technical things, it's also a very important project with an investment potential of $450 million. This is being reassessed, but it's to give you an idea of the size of the projects that we are financing. Another project that is beyond connectivity has to do with how we can take advantage of connectivity with projects with colleagues from other areas. For example, from the private sector. In the agribusiness sector, a colleague started seeing the possibility of improving the competitiveness of an agro-exporting business in Peru, which is an agro-industrial cluster that has around 15% of agro-exports in Peru. And in our area in digital transformation, we developed the guidelines to move towards a digital area, not only in everything that has to do with transport, but also the whole chain, including crops, automation, data analysis, and developing some kind of capabilities in loading, tools for the management of water resources, etc. So we do have the mix between the use of connectivity directly applied to specific territories. And also I would like to mention that before financing, we support projects of 5G in countries. We are working with Argentina, Costa Rica, and Panama to solve the bottlenecks that all the countries in the region are going to be moving forward towards this transition of 5G. And we are helping with the regulation things, band allocation, and also we need to determine use cases that are going to determine this new ecosystem. So we are supporting these countries in these roadmaps in order to allow them to develop different steps and critical uses so as to develop a roadmap together, working with the industry as well as with prospective beneficiaries of this kind of technology, and of course to think about financing for implementing these projects. And finally, I wanted to tell you that we are working as regards infrastructure in everything that has to do with infrastructure and the digital transformation in the governments, and we are working with the IDB here as well. We have supported different governments as regards digital transformation. We do technical assistance, and we are supporting an action plan for 16 regional governments with the new laws and regulations that have to do with centralization of the government in Chile, and we started assessing their digital situation specifically for back office management and also to offer public services. There was a lot of interest on this as regards open data, and this is being done at the time. It's going to be ready in 6 months, but it somehow shows that although Chile could be one of the most advanced countries as digital means, but when we consider the gaps, we can see that we have huge opportunities here. And I would also like to mention that in the region we have been working a lot with Colombia. We have started operations with public policy loans of $500 million, and with a lot of topics that have to do with promoting the use of strategic use of data, AI, and supporting improving regulations, as well as companies offering services to governments, as well as network platforms as regards fighting corruption. We can see a huge list of initiatives and projects as regards internet and infrastructure that are mainly oriented to make governments, companies in Latin America to benefit from the digital transformation. Now, let me tell you a typical project. This could be a roadmap. And in CAF, what we do is, for example, let's think that today we have a request from Olga, Adriano, or you saying that you want to move forward in a technical cooperation to develop a pre-investment in a connectivity network. In CAF, what we do is we do it quite expeditiously. What we do, if we agree, we quickly, in maybe a month and a half, we can start working on that with some consultants, and we start with an action plan, a diagnosis and a demand. We research the demand of the territory that we are going to connect. We do some technical studies as well as economic and legal studies, and then until we start implementing some actions, it may be in 7 months. So you can see and have an idea of the timeline, and depending on the amount of money, of course, if it is above $7 million, it should be approved by the board of directors of CAF. And if it is below that number, we can do it through a fast track and maybe approved it in 3 months, if the context is beneficial for the project, of course. So this is to give you an idea of the timeline and the cycles between starting analyzing the project and implementing it. I wanted to basically tell you about our role, and I'm willing to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you. Thanks, Eduardo. And if you can share this presentation, we would really like to have it and to share it with the audience. Now, I'm going to give the floor to Miguel Porrua so that he is going to talk about what the IDB is doing and tell us more in detail the projects such as this alliance with CAF in 100% Digital Panama, and also the project that you have been working on as regards the LACChain network that Marcos Allende was mentioning yesterday. If you can share a little bit everything that has been done as regards that and the financing issues. Thank you, Miguel. Welcome, and the floor is all yours. Thank you, Jorge. Good morning. I don't have a PowerPoint presentation. I know that the moderator and the panelists were great speakers, so that's why I decided not to give you a PowerPoint presentation. I wanted the audience to see your faces. So I'm going to tell you the story. I think I'm going to do it in 10 minutes. I may extend it a little bit, but if I don't stop in 10 minutes, let me know, Jorge, because if not, the audience is only going to ask when they are going to be able to ask questions, because we don't have much time. So I'm going to tell you a little bit what you asked me in 10 minutes, and if I exceed my time, please let me know. I want to first thank you, Olga and Adrian, for the possibility of participating in this school, which is a very well-known school in the region. This is always great to talk about digital situations in the agenda, and I want to thank you for the possibility of the IDB being present today. I want to tell you what we do at the IDB, and I'm going to mention some of the projects that you mentioned, Jorge. I'm not going to talk about blockchain after Marcos Allende, who is one of the main scientists in this topic, but I can tell you a little bit of what we are doing with LACChain colleagues. I'm sure it was a pleasure to listen to Marcos talk about blockchain yesterday. Probably you all know that the IDB is a well-known institution in the region. It was created in 1959. It has more than 60 years, and it offers financing for development to the 26 member countries in Latin America and the Caribbean. We have 48 European and world members. We offer loans annually. I'm going to share 3 websites where you can find more information than the one I'm giving you today. But I want to give you some estimates to give you an idea of the IDB role in the region in general, and specifically as regards digital issues. If you visit one of the websites that I'm going to show you later and you see the annual report, there's a lot of information, and you are going to be able to see that the bank contributed to the region in 2021 with $23 million in financing, out of which 14 were sovereign loans to governments in the different sectors. 6 million were in the private sector, and 3 million are to other kind of finances. So it's a total number of 23. So it's important to mention that the IDB has an area for the public sector, but there are also BidInvest and BidLab, which are for the private sector. BidInvest is like ITB Invest is like a private, works as a private bank, and then we also have financing for new businesses in the region. The bank has a strategy. It was a pleasure to hear about the Internet Society because we have a similar mission. We want to improve lives in Latin America and the Caribbean, and that's why the institutional strategy is defined on 3 pillars. We connect everything that has to do with digital with this mission. What we care about digital is the possibility of improving healthcare or business activity or access to education. So the 3 main areas in our institutional strategy are social inclusion and equality, productivity and innovation, and regional economic integration. These are 3 main topics in the region. And then we have 3 topics that are connected to all the topics in the region. One has to do with gender equality and integration and diversity. Another one is climatic change and the environment. And the third one is adopting digital technologies. So mentioning the digital topic, I wanted to say that we have an area within the bank, a department that is called CMS, is Connectivity and Financial Markets, which has to do with connectivity and broadband. Projects such as the ones that Eduardo was showing you, and the one like in Peru where we cooperated with CAF. We have a group of people devoted to that, and they have an observatory also to see how the broadband is evolving in the region. That is led by Antonio Garcia Zavallo, if you want to contact him. And then we have another department that is called Innovation to Help Citizens, that works in different modernization projects for the public sector, how the public sector can use those digital technologies to improve services they offer to people. There's a data and digital government cluster there in which we coordinate those projects for using digital technologies to improve the public sector. Here we are following a plan similar to the one Eduardo was showing in CAF. We have investment loans and policy loans, which is reimbursable financing, and we also have a huge technical cooperation portfolio, financing different research studies and consultancy training. And every year we are contributing more than $100 million for in grants for non-reimbursable cooperation. The access mechanism for those in the audience to this kind of financing is always the same. The bank office in the Latin American country in which you are. The bank has offices in the 26 countries, and we have offices and we have people in all those offices in those countries. So as regards digital things, in most offices in the country, you are going to find a representative. The access processes and the timelines, as Jorge was saying, if it is about technical cooperation, the access to the support may take 2 months. If it has to do with loans, it is similar to what Eduardo was saying. If it's depending on the complexity of the project, it may be maybe 4 months, or if it's a little bit more complex, it may take 7 or 8 months in order to be approved. That is in the case of loans. To give you an idea of the financing for digital things, those 14 million that I was mentioning as regards sovereign loans, most has to do with digital content and components. If we think about the CAF numbers and the ones that I am mentioning, it's a lot of money that is being invested in the digital agenda. But nevertheless, I believe it's not enough money. Research that we have been doing indicates that in order to close the connectivity gap that Latin America has, according to the OECD, we need $80 billion investment. So we're talking about hospitals, not talking about hospitals or all schools using technology. We need a lot more resources for that. But there's a positive message that governments are investing in the digital agenda. There are different mechanisms, such as the ones from CAF and IDB, but it's not enough. So I believe that those of us in this fields, even in the audience or members of the government, students, different organizations, foundations, we all need to contribute so that to continue working, because we are still behind in this fourth industrial revolution, and we need to double our efforts as regards connectivity, as it was shown in some of the maps that Eduardo was showing us. But also, we have some gaps to close as regards regulations. Only 18 countries with data protection acts, it's not enough. And out of those 18, only 8 or 9 have a personal data protection agency. So, only to mention one topic, if I start talking about cybersecurity, in which we also have some different projects for technical assistance and loans, if I start talking about cybersecurity, we are going to feel so depressed. There are only 7 out of 32 countries that have a plan to protect critical infrastructures. Only 7 out of 32. So we are living in a region with a lot of the finance ministries that have been hacked. So I want to give you a balanced message. The agenda is being pursued. There are financing mechanisms, as it was shown in this panel, but we need to double our efforts, our individual efforts from our roles as policymakers or whatever our role is. I'm sorry, I exceeded my 10 minutes by 2, so I'm now going to give the floor to the moderator, and I'm going to be paying attention to the rest of the panel, and I'm going to give you the 3 websites that I mentioned so that you can see this in more detail. Thank you, Miguel. I think that you are mentioning difficult topics that we need to work on and we need to improve in order to have full digitalization, and we should pay attention to some global countries, that we need to pay attention to some countries in which the paradigm on digitalization was broken, and they do have operability between the private and public sector, and we are far behind in Latin America. I believe that there's effectively much to be done from the government in order to develop these policies and to execute those public policies. But I also believe that financing from international organizations is a key element, and this kind of conferences contribute a lot so as to start closing those gaps. In that sense, I would like to answer some of the questions from the audience now. I wish we could also answered some of the questions from the online audience, as well as the ones that are there in the room. So, Olga, please, if you can help us with the Q&A. I'm going to look for a mic. I wanted to ask Eduardo, which do you think is going to be the timing of this cable that is going to connect Latin America with Asia? And now I'm going to offer the microphone for the question of Amelis Espinosa from Colombia. I have a question that may be kind of philosophical, but I believe that it's clear that there's a huge gap as regards technology in Colombia or Latin America as a whole with the rest of the world, compared to the rest of the world. But for example, there's a lot of investment in technology in some places, but it's not being taken advantage of. So there's sometimes we require a lot of infrastructure investment, but sometimes in Colombia, for example, there are institutions that I'm not going to mention that have technological platforms that if you go to do something in person, it may take a month. But if you do it online, it may take 6 months. So the government itself is making processes online more difficult. So we are kind of losing the dynamics to give incentive to the use of technology. I don't know if it's kind of a philosophical question, but that's what I wanted to tell you.
And I have a question for Sarah. Can you hear me, Sarah? Quiero preguntar a Sara cuáles de las líneas de financiamiento son a través de capítulos.
I wanted to ask which of the financing lines are through the chapters in the countries and which are not. Now I'm going to give the floor to the panel to answer the questions. Great, Olga. As regards the cable, now it is in a request for interest phase. We expect to take 3 to 4 more months, and from there we estimate that the project would be officially in operation by 2025. If everything works in this complex scenario, as regards technological inputs and the ships that may deploy this kind of infrastructure, which are quite limited. Taking all that into account, we believe that 2025 is the timeline that we are going to be facing. As regards the next question, I believe that there's something critical, and that is that infrastructure is an enabler, but is not going to solve all the other critical issues so that digital transformation becomes a reality. This has to do with allocation. Allocation as the capacity of using digital technologies that will require some basic elements of digital connectivity, but also beyond infrastructure, we need to think about the offer of services, as you were mentioning. For example, from the government or from corporations and from other individuals. And that is a huge challenge that we face, not only as regards infrastructure, but what we are also seeing in countries is that they start with some solutions, intensive solutions, and it is vital to have an action plan and a roadmap, and to give incentives as regards the digital transformation, so that we have the adequate framework to support this and to empower people to do this. So, infrastructure is important, as well as services in the public sector. And also, demand is important. When we talk about individuals that have more power, so that internet is only something that is used for entertainment, but also for production.
Jorge, would you like me to answer Olga's question regarding the chapter programs?
Yeah, please go ahead, Sarah.
Okay, thank you. And
Thank
I
you.
have figured out the audio glitch, so you will not hear me many times. Just hear me once. So, Olga, that's always a great question. So, as we mentioned up front, it's definitely important for us to have the chapters apply to Beyond the Net. And it's why, as I mentioned in my presentation, which may have been difficult to hear, that we have responded to the chapter's needs, make sure that they are getting what they need. We have increased the amount of money that's available, increase the amount of time that's available, and also given them a lot more flexibility in the types of projects that they're doing. However, chapters are eligible for all of our program areas. That includes both. That includes rare, that includes research, that includes skills. If they have a program and they can either work with another organization or get their 501c3 or equivalent, they can, in fact, apply for grants for all of our programs. And in fact, right now, we are funding programs outside of Beyond the Net for Uganda, Kyrgyzstan, and also Zimbabwe. And we are talking a lot of money. And in one case, Uganda is fiscally sponsoring another organization. And in another case, we have a $200,000 program for a chapter. So I must say, I encourage every Internet Society chapter to look at our other programs and see how you can use your wonderful expertise in this area and do more. Do Beyond the Net, please, but do more as well.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you very much.
Gracias, Sara.
Okay, we'll hear from Miguel. And you said that even though we have financing, we're far from the OECD. And I would like to dwell on this idea because I'm very optimistic. How do you see Latin America's position in order to bridge that gap and to attain some level of hope or better infrastructure that will lead us to development? The way I see it is that I have my hopes up, just like you. My hopes and expectations are that by bridging the gap in the digital arena or digital divide in Latin America is closely related, such as in health or in education improvement, which will require further training and further skills. I think that we're making the necessary steps, but we still need to do much more. And it's no secret that in countries across a region, if you go to the office responsible for the digital agenda, you have only 8 or 10 officials. If you go to the cybersecurity teams in that office, you have one person and a half, and that's the job of 2 people. So we need to close that divide. I'm very optimistic because decision makers or policy makers that deal with resource allocation are totally aware of the digital agenda that is so required by the private and public sector to make this country prosperous and successful by investing more resources. And I believe that regulation processes create consensus that revolve around regulations or laws that would favor to develop the digital world. Before, it was not the case. So these are the positive aspects. And the other thing is that we need to grow, or that we have the possibility of growing, like Estonia, Korea, Spain, among others. Next month, we have the Digital Government Summit in LIA together with the OAS and the government of Peru, and we're going to gather many parties, national governments sharing good practices, making progress in adopting these technologies. So don't be pessimistic. We should be aware and raise awareness, and we usually don't take things for granted. So I'm very optimistic about this growth. Thank you very much. I would like to thank the panel. Thanks, Jara, Jorge, Eduardo, and Ray. Thanks a lot for your time. We have had some problems with sound and feedback, but it happens. Hopefully, you're going to continue contributing with the Internet Society Foundation, CAF, the school, RAIF, and CAF. And let me tell the students that we're going to break for lunch, and we'll look forward to seeing you in the future. Thank you. Thanks a lot. Goodbye.